All right, strap in everyone, because today we are going deep on the Maiden, Mother, Matriarch, Rediscovering the Archetype of the Good Mother by Conrad Riker. We've got excerpts and, well, let me tell you, this one is a real eye-opener, especially when you start to think about, the roles of men and women in society and how they've changed over time.
It's amazing how Riker really connects these different threads. You've got history, psychology, culture, and he ties it all together through this lens of the good mother archetype. It's a really powerful concept and one that, well, it just seems to resonate across different times and different places.
Yeah, and I was really struck by how he kind of pushes back on some of the common ideas about relationships these days. Like, he really argues that this whole push to throw out the traditional roles, especially for women, that it hasn't actually made people happier.
Exactly. And, he uses that good mother archetype to explore why that might be. Now, some of you might be thinking, what exactly are archetypes?
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Well, it's a term that Carl Jung, the famous psychoanalyst, came up with. It describes these universal symbols or patterns that are embedded in our collective unconscious.
So it's like these symbols have been around forever, kind of shaping how we see the world.
Precisely. Think about those really powerful mother figures we see throughout history and across cultures, like the Virgin Mary in Christianity, Gaia in Greek mythology, Durga in Hinduism, even Amaterasu in Japanese mythology. All of these figures, they might come from different cultures, but they all represent those same core ideas: nurturing, protection, wisdom.
And Riker's saying that these figures are pointing to a universal understanding of what a good mother is. Like, it's something that we all kind of get, no matter where we come from.
It really is mind-blowing when you think about it. And here's where it gets even more interesting. He argues that embracing these traditional roles, even today, could actually lead to more happiness and fulfillment.
Now, that might sound a little controversial to some people, but, Riker really lays out a strong case for it.
He does.
He looks at history, psychology, even looks at some contemporary stories to kind of explore this idea.
Yeah.
So, are you ready to see how this whole good mother archetype might connect to your own life, your own relationship?
Let's dive in.
All right, one of the first things that jumped out at me was how Riker, he traces the evolution of the mother archetype. It's like it goes through different societies, different times. You really get a sense of how this concept has shaped the way we view men and women.
Yeah, absolutely. And he really highlights how Christianity, especially the figure of the Virgin Mary, has played a huge role in shaping the Western view of motherhood. And then he contrasts that with Eastern cultures, like in Confucianism, where they emphasize filial piety, or the Japanese reverence for Amaterasu, the sun goddess, as this mother figure.
I thought that comparison was really eye-opening. It shows you how different cultural values and belief systems really play a role in how we understand gender roles.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Despite those differences, Riker emphasizes that the core values stay the same. Love, nurturing, protection, those are constants across culture.
It's true. It really makes you realize that this idea of the good mother, it's deeply rooted in us as humans, no matter where you're from.
Right, now let's look at the psychological side of things. How does this archetype show up in our minds? Well, Riker explores its role in psychotherapy and self-improvement. He explains that the good mother archetype really represents our basic need for love, care, and nurturing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We all crave that feeling of security and belonging, especially early on in life.
Exactly, and he challenges you to think about how this archetype might be playing out in your own relationships and in your personal growth. Who are you drawn to? What kind of support do you need? How do you show love to others? It's all connected to this powerful archetype.
Now, Riker gets into a topic that I know a lot of folks are thinking about. Traditional roles versus modern challenges. This is where things get a bit controversial, I guess you could say. He really makes a strong argument for the importance of those traditional roles, especially for women, even in today's world.
Right, and he gets that modern women face a lot of challenges, especially when it comes to juggling their careers and family life. He uses a really interesting example in the book, a couple named Mary and Bill, to show how different things turn out when you embrace traditional versus modern approaches to relationships. Mary, she was raised with traditional values, and she finds a lot of fulfillment as a wife and mother. Bill, on the other hand, he was raised with a more, modern, freewheeling approach, and he struggles with commitment and taking on responsibility.
Yeah, it's an interesting comparison. It really makes you think about the long-term consequences of these different ways of approaching relationships.
It does, and even though modern women have their struggles, Riker says that finding a balance between those traditional roles and modern aspirations, that's the key to a fulfilling life. And he emphasizes raising girls with a clear understanding of these traditional roles, especially in the world we live in today.
Makes a really good point about how understanding those roles can actually empower women to make their own choices about their lives, instead of feeling pressured to conform to whatever society is telling them to do.
That's right. It's about knowing your options and choosing what feels authentic and fulfilling to you.
Now, another big thing that Riker talks about is this idea of passing down wisdom and cultural traditions, like from one generation to the next. And he focuses on the role of mothers and grandmothers in making sure those customs and values don't get lost.
Absolutely. And he uses this great example from Indian families. It's called kanyadan. Basically, the older women, they adopt the younger women into the family. And they pass down all of their knowledge and tradition. It's how they ensure their heritage continues.
Wow, it's like a built-in mentorship program for life. I love that. It's not just about the practical skills, though, right? Like cooking and cleaning, although those are important. It's about passing down a way of life, a whole set of values, a sense of belonging.
It's all of that. And Riker highlights how good this wisdom sharing is for us psychologically. There are studies that show it can improve well-being and self-esteem, especially in young women. It gives them a sense of purpose, a connection to something bigger than themselves.
That makes sense. Having those strong female role models and that connection to the past, it can really impact how you see yourself and your place in the world.
Absolutely. And, Riker's message is clear. We need to remember and uphold these cultural traditions. And we need to think about what traditions and values we want to pass on to the next generation. What legacy are we leaving behind?
It's a big question. It really makes you think about what's truly important and how we can contribute to something larger than ourselves.
Now, this next part is really fascinating. Riker dives into the world of matriarchal society. He uses examples from African and Native American cultures, where inheritance and lineage, they're all traced through the female line. And the matriarchs, they play a central role in preserving the cultural identity. They're the guardians of their culture, keeping the stories, songs, and traditions alive.
It's amazing to see how different cultures structure their societies and how that impacts gender roles and family dynamics.
It is, and Riker challenges us to think about how we can preserve our own cultural heritage, especially in a world that's becoming more and more homogenized.
It's like a call to action, to remember where we come from and what makes us unique.
Exactly. Now, Riker doesn't just talk about traditional society. He also looks at how the good mother archetype shows up in contemporary storytelling, like in the comic book series Saga, for example.
Oh, I love Saga.
Yeah.
Such a unique and thought-provoking series.
It really is, and Riker focuses on this character, Alana. She's a strong, resourceful mother figure who doesn't fit into the traditional mold. He uses her to show how these traditional archetypes can be reinterpreted in a way that resonates with our modern experiences. It makes us question our assumptions and explore new ways of being.
It's interesting, right? Even in fiction, we're still drawn to these powerful mother figures, but the way they're portrayed is changing.
That's right, and it raises a big question. How can we reinterpret these traditional archetypes in a way that feels authentic and empowering for us today?
That's a great question to ponder as we navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century.
It is. Now, let's get real for a minute. Riker doesn't shy away from the challenges that modern mothers face. He recognizes the huge amount of pressure they feel trying to balance their careers with those traditional roles.
It's a constant juggling act.
It is, and he explores the emotional toll that takes. The guilt, the anxiety, the resentment, all of that can build up when women feel pulled in so many directions.
He's really calling for more understanding and support for mothers, especially those who are trying to manage all of these competing demands.
Exactly. He wants a more compassionate and empathetic approach to motherhood in our society.
It's about recognizing that mothers are human, not superheroes. They need our help.
Now, brace yourself, because we're about to take a sharp turn. Riker goes into what can happen when we abandon traditional matrimonial values. And he doesn't hold back.
Yeah, this is where he really starts to challenge some core beliefs about relationships.
He argues that this shift away from lifelong commitment in marriage, it's impacting us psychologically. And it's affecting society as a whole. He points to the rising divorce rates, the increase in single-parent households.
He even connects those trends to things like anxiety, depression, lower levels of happiness, even financial instability, and poorer physical health.
It's a pretty bold statement to say that maybe moving away from traditional marriage is undermining our well-being.
It's definitely a controversial topic, and there are definitely different viewpoints out there.
Of course, but Riker's argument, it's definitely thought-provoking. He's asking us to reconsider our assumptions about marriage and long-term commitment, and to think about whether this shift away from traditional values is really serving us.
He's not saying everyone should go run out and get married, but he is starting a conversation about the choices we make and how those choices impact our lives and our community.
It's about being honest with ourselves about what we value and how we want to build our relationships and our families.
Now, let's bring in the spiritual side of things. Riker explores how religion can support traditional values. He uses the example of the Virgin Mary in Christianity to show how religious beliefs can be a source of guidance for women, especially in their roles as mothers and wives.
Right. He highlights how religious communities can offer a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, and that can really strengthen families and help preserve those traditional values. It's about finding support and guidance that goes beyond the individual and recognizing the power of shared beliefs and practices.
Riker doesn't just stay in the theoretical realm. He actually offers some practical tips for how to incorporate traditional values into our modern lives.
He does. He emphasizes clear communication within families, setting aside time for family meals and conversations, and doing things together that create a sense of unity and connection. He's giving us concrete steps we can take to strengthen our family relationships and rediscover the power of those traditional roles.
So it's about putting those values into action and seeing how they can enrich our lives and relationships. Well, there you have it, part 1 of our deep dive into the Maiden Mother Matriarch.
Wow. We covered a lot of ground, from the evolution of the mother archetype to the challenges of modern motherhood, and the importance of preserving those traditions.
This is just the beginning. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll be exploring even more thought-provoking insights from the Maiden Mother Matriarch. And we'll dive deeper into what it means to embrace those traditional roles.
We'll be looking at things like natural childbirth, the role of grandmothers in passing down wisdom, and how to raise self-reliant kids and teach them to care for the environment.
It's going to be another fascinating conversation, so don't miss it. We'll see you back here soon for part 2 of our deep dive into the Maiden Mother Matriarch. Wow, I'm still thinking about some of the stuff we talked about in the last part of our deep dive into the Maiden Mother Matriarch. There's just so much to consider when it comes to the roles of women and mothers, throughout history, and how it all connects to our lives today.
It is fascinating, isn't it? And we've barely scratched the surface. In this section, Riker really digs into some interesting topics, like natural childbirth and the role of grandmothers and passing down wisdom and tradition.
Okay, so let's talk about childbirth. Riker explores the idea that natural childbirth can actually have some psychological benefits. And he tells these incredible stories of women who had really empowering experiences giving birth without any medical intervention.
Yeah, like he talks about Alan, who describes natural childbirth as this transformative experience that brought her closer to her baby. And then there's Sarah, who found the whole process incredibly empowering and even spiritual. It's about reclaiming the power of the female body and trusting in its natural abilities.
I find that perspective really interesting because it kind of challenges the idea that childbirth is inherently dangerous and that you always need medical intervention.
Right. And Riker acknowledges that natural childbirth isn't for everyone. He's not saying it's the only way. It's about respecting women's choices and giving them the information and support they need to make informed decisions about their bodies and their births.
So it's about empowerment and having control over your own body, right?
Exactly. And it's also about understanding the potential risks that come with certain interventions, like epidurals or inducing labor. It's about weighing those benefits and risks and choosing what feels right for you.
All right, let's move on to grandmother. Riker has a whole chapter on how crucial they are in passing down wisdom and tradition. And this really resonated with me. My grandmother was a huge influence in my life.
It's a special bond, that connection between grandmothers and their grandchildren. Riker argues that grandmothers are the keepers of tradition. They're the storytellers who link us to our past, and their wisdom can provide so much guidance and support for younger generations.
He shares these great examples of grandmothers from different cultures who are actively involved in raising their grandchildren. They're teaching them practical skills, sharing family stories, offering emotional support. It's about keeping that connection between generations strong.
And he asks this really interesting question. What happens if we lose touch with that ancestral wisdom? What if we stop listening to the stories of our elders?
It's a scary thought, isn't it? It's like losing a part of ourselves, our history, our identity.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the importance of those who came before us and the lessons they have to teach us. Riker's saying we need to seek out that wisdom from our grandmothers and honor the important role they play in our families and community.
Now let's talk about self-reliance. I know a lot of our listeners are really interested in this topic. Riker argues that it's so important to foster self-reliance in children for their development. And he emphasizes the role of women in this process.
Right. He shares examples of families where mothers have instilled this strong sense of independence in their kids. Like the Swan family, where the daughters are super motivated and the sons are really involved in community service. Or the O'Gara family, where the kids are taught to take on responsibilities from a young age.
It's amazing how different parenting styles can really shape a child's character and their ability to navigate the world.
Absolutely. And then he contrasts those families with the Benson family, where the father is kind of overbearing. And it actually prevents his son from becoming self-sufficient.
It's a good reminder about finding that balance, right, between supporting your kids and giving them the space to learn and grow on their own.
Exactly. Riker says mothers need to find that sweet spot between nurturing and encouraging independence so their children can develop the skills and confidence they need to succeed.
Step. Riker talks about something I'm really passionate about, environmental stewardship. He believes women have a unique and vital role to play in protecting our planet.
He ties it back to the good mother archetype, that natural desire to nurture and protect not just our children, but our environment as well.
He points out that women are often the primary caretakers of the home, so they have a real interest in creating a healthy and sustainable environment for their family.
Historically, women have been key in preserving traditional ecological knowledge. He shares some really inspiring stories of women who've made a difference in the environmental movement.
Like Wangari Maathai, who started the Greenbelt movement in Kenya. She empowered women to plant trees and fight deforestation. Such an inspiring story.
It is, and it connects back to that idea of the good mother as a force for good in the world. Riker's message is clear. We need to tap into that energy and wisdom to raise a new generation of environmental stewards and create a better future for our children.
And he doesn't just stop at the big picture stuff. He gives practical tips for making our everyday lives more eco-friendly.
Right. He encourages us to embrace those traditional practices that are often more sustainable, like using natural cleaning products, growing our own food, and reducing our consumption.
It's about making conscious choices that are good for our families and the planet, and realizing that even small changes can make a difference when we all do them together.
Now, remember that topic we touched on earlier about the potential downsides of abandoning traditional marriage? Well, Riker goes even deeper into that here. He explores how it's impacting society as a whole.
He argues that this move away from lifelong commitment is leading to a more fragmented and isolated society.
Right. He connects it to the rising rates of loneliness and depression, the decline in social trust, the weakening of community ties. It's a pretty bleak picture he paints of a society losing its sense of connection and belonging.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought, especially in a world that's becoming more and more individualistic.
It is, but Riker still has hope. He believes we can turn things around by rediscovering the importance of commitment, stability, and shared responsibility.
It's about recognizing that strong families are the foundation of a strong society, and that investing in those relationships is crucial for all of us.
Exactly. He's not saying everyone needs to get married right away, but he is calling for a return to those core values, the values that have historically given people stability and meaning.
It's about having an open and honest conversation about the state of our relationships and communities, and working together to create a future where we're more connected and fulfilled.
Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the role of religion, specifically how it can support traditional family values. Riker argues that religious institutions have played a big role in promoting strong families throughout history.
He points to the teachings of different faiths, which often emphasize things like marriage, fidelity, and being responsible parents. He sees religion as a source of guidance and support for families, especially during tough times or when they're going through transition.
Right, and he highlights how religious communities can provide that sense of belonging and purpose, which can be so important in a world that can feel isolating and uncertain.
He acknowledges that not all religious traditions are perfect, and that some might even have harmful practices. But overall, he believes that religion has been a positive force when it comes to strengthening families and preserving those traditional values.
It's about recognizing the potential of faith and community to offer support and guidance, especially when it comes to navigating family life.
Riker also looks at how the good mother archetype shows up within different religious traditions. He uses examples like the Virgin Mary in Christianity and the goddess Durga in Hinduism.
Right. He shows how these figures, even though they come from different cultures, they embody those core values of love, nurturing, and self-sacrifice. The values that are so central to motherhood. It's about recognizing the universal power of this archetype across different belief systems.
Okay, let's move on to another topic that's really important to a lot of mothers, breastfeeding. Riker has a whole chapter dedicated to the benefits of breastfeeding, both the psychological and emotional benefits for both the mother and the child.
He cites a ton of studies that show how breastfeeding can boost a child's cognitive development, strengthen the mother-child bond, and even lower the risk of certain diseases. It's about recognizing the impact of this natural act on both the mother and the baby, both physically and emotionally.
He also addresses the controversy around breastfeeding in public. He believes women should be able to nurse their babies wherever they feel comfortable, without being judged or harassed.
Absolutely. It's about normalizing breastfeeding and challenging those societal taboos that make it hard for women to feed their babies in public. It's about supporting mothers and respecting their choices.
Now let's go back to grandmothers and their wisdom, specifically the wisdom they share in the kitchen. Riker says that traditional cooking skills are about more than just making tasty food.
He sees them as a way to preserve our cultural heritage and strengthen family bonds. He shares these heartwarming stories of grandmothers teaching their granddaughters family recipes, passing down those techniques and traditions that have been cherished for generations.
He also emphasizes using fresh, whole ingredients and avoiding processed foods. He's advocating for a return to a more traditional way of eating, one that's healthier, more sustainable, and more connected to our roots.
Right. It's about recognizing the value of those time-honored practices and the wisdom they hold. It's about understanding that food isn't just fuel. It's a way to connect with our heritage and nourish our families in a deeper way.
Now let's talk about another important aspect of homemaking: cleanliness and organization. Riker argues that these skills are all about creating a sanctuary, a space where families can feel safe and at peace.
He shares some practical tips from his own grandmother for keeping a clean and organized home. And he stresses how important it is to teach these skills to our children so they can create their own haven.
It's about recognizing that a well-maintained home is more than just a place to live. It's the foundation for a healthy and happy family life.
It's about creating a space where love, connection, and peace can flourish.
Now, we're going to get into some pretty emotional territory here. We're going to talk about the psychological impact on women when they abandon traditional role. This is where Riker really starts to challenge some deeply held beliefs.
He argues that this shift away from traditional roles has had a big impact on women's mental health and on society as a whole.
He points to the increasing rates of depression, anxiety, and substance abuse among women, and he highlights the decline in marital satisfaction and the rise in divorce rates.
He's making the case that when women abandon those traditional roles, they often end up feeling lost, unfulfilled, and disconnected from their true purpose.
Now, he's not saying that all women should stay at home and raise children, but he is encouraging us to rethink our assumptions about what it means to be a woman, and to consider the possibility that traditional roles can actually be empowering.
It's a complex issue, and there's no one right answer. It's about encouraging women to explore their options and choose the path that feels right for them, whether that aligns with traditional roles or not.
Riker then explores a topic that's not often talked about: the role of women in fostering self-reliance in men.
He believes that women have a unique ability to nurture those qualities that make men strong, independent, and capable. He shares examples of mothers who have raised sons who are confident, responsible, and successful.
It's about understanding the huge influence mothers have on their sons, and recognizing that their guidance and support can really shape a man's character and help him thrive in the world.
He talks about the importance of setting clear boundaries and expectations, and allowing men to face challenges and learn from their mistakes. It's about empowering men to reach their full potential, not by babying them, but by encouraging them to step into their strength and responsibility.
Next, we dive into another often overlooked topic: the role of women in shaping men's spiritual lives.
Riker argues that women have a deep understanding of the spiritual realm, and they can play a crucial role in guiding men on their spiritual journey. He shares examples of mothers who have instilled a strong sense of faith in their sons, and wives who have supported their husbands in their spiritual growth. He sees women as these spiritual anchors, providing stability and guidance as men navigate the complexities of life and faith.
It's about recognizing the unique spiritual gifts that women bring to relationships, and their ability to inspire and uplift those around them.
Right, and he also highlights the importance of prayer, meditation, and other spiritual practices for developing a deeper connection to the divine. He encourages both men and women to cultivate their spiritual lives and seek meaning and purpose beyond just the material world.
Okay, now we're going to explore a topic that can be a bit controversial: the role of women in promoting traditional masculinity. This is where Riker really challenges some of the common ideas about gender roles.
He argues that women actually have a deep understanding of what it means to be a man, and they can help men embrace their masculine identity in a healthy and positive way.
He shares examples of mothers who have raised sons who are strong, confident, and respectful. It's about the power of positive role models and the impact they can have on young men.
He also talks about how important it is for boys to have male role models and to participate in traditionally masculine activities. He sees these experiences as essential for boys' development and for helping them understand what it means to be a man.
So he's making a case for a return to a more traditional understanding of masculinity, one that emphasizes strength, honor, and responsibility.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming those positive aspects of masculinity that have been lost or distorted in modern society, and encouraging men to embrace their full potential as protectors, providers, and leaders.
Now let's shift our focus to another important role that women play: fostering a sense of community.
Riker argues that women are naturally good at bringing people together and creating a sense of belonging. He sees this as a key part of the good mother archetype, that desire to nurture and connect, not just within the family, but within the community as well.
He shares examples of women who have organized community events, volunteered their time, and created spaces where people can connect and build relationships.
He also talks about the importance of strong family ties and relationships between different generations. He sees these connections as crucial for building a sense of belonging and continuity within a community.
It's about recognizing the power of women to build bridges and create a more connected and supportive society.
Now get ready because we're going to dive into some deep waters here.
Wait.
We're going to talk about the role of women in challenging feminism.
This is where Riker really pushes some boundaries and challenges some very deeply held beliefs about gender equality.
He argues that feminism has gone too far and that it's actually harmed women more than it's helped them. Now, this is a controversial statement, and it's important to approach this topic carefully and thoughtfully.
He points to things like the rising rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide among women, and the decline in marriage rates, and the increase in single-parent households.
He's saying that feminism has created a culture that doesn't value motherhood and family, and that it sets unrealistic expectations for women, leaving them feeling stressed, overwhelmed, and unfulfilled.
It's a complex issue, and there are many different perspectives. But Riker's book gives us a good starting point for conversation that we need to have. A conversation about the real impact of feminism on women and society.
It's about having open and honest discussions, even when those conversations are difficult or challenge our beliefs. It's about seeking truth and understanding, even when it's uncomfortable.
Now let's explore another important theme that runs throughout Riker's book: the role of women in promoting traditional values.
He argues that women are the guardians of tradition, and they're essential in passing those values down to the next generation. It's about recognizing the power women have to shape the moral compass of society.
He shares examples of mothers who have taught their children about respect, responsibility, and hard work. He sees these values as the foundation of a strong and successful society.
He also emphasizes the role of cultural traditions and religious beliefs in shaping our morals. He sees them as a source of wisdom and guidance, providing a framework for living a meaningful and ethical life.
It's about recognizing the huge influence that women have on the values and beliefs of future generations, and understanding how important it is to preserve those traditions that have served humanity well for centuries.
Now let's shift our focus to a topic that's often overlooked: the role of women in managing a household.
Riker argues that these skills are more important than ever in today's world. He believes that a well-managed home is the foundation for a strong family, and that women are naturally gifted at creating a nurturing and organized environment.
He shares practical advice on everything from cleaning and cooking to budgeting and time management. He's not saying that women should be solely responsible for all the housework, but he is emphasizing the importance of these skills and how much they contribute to family life.
It's about creating a space where everyone feels comfortable and supported, and where the day-to-day aspects of life are handled with care and efficiency.
Right. He's reminding us that a well-run home is a sanctuary, a place where peace and love can thrive.
Now let's talk about something that's often overlooked: the role of grandmothers in supporting working mothers.
Riker argues that grandmothers can be a huge help for women who are trying to balance work and family. He sees this kind of intergenerational support as crucial for the well-being of both mothers and children.
He points out that grandmothers often have a lot of experience and wisdom to share, and they can help with things like childcare, cooking, and other household chores.
And they also offer emotional support. Their unconditional love and encouragement can be a lifeline for busy mothers who are feeling stressed or overwhelmed.
It's about recognizing the importance of extended family and the incredible support they can offer. It's about tapping into that network of love and care and allowing grandmothers to play an active role in the lives of their children and grandchildren.
Now, we're going to get into another topic that can be a bit controversial: the psychological and emotional benefits of traditional roles for women.
Riker argues that embracing these roles can actually lead to greater happiness and fulfillment, even in a world that's constantly telling women they need to be striving for more, achieving more, doing more.
He mentions studies that show women who stay at home with their children tend to be happier than those who work outside the home.
He also talks about how important it is to have a sense of purpose and to feel valued for your contribution, whether you're working outside the home or within the home.
He believes that traditional roles can give women a deep sense of meaning and purpose. It allows them to focus on what truly matters to them: their families, their communities, and their own personal growth.
It's about recognizing that there are many different paths to fulfillment, and that a woman's worth isn't determined by her job or how much money she makes. It's about her character, her compassion, and the contributions she makes to the world.
Okay, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to emphasize that Riker's book is full of thought-provoking ideas and perspectives that challenge the status quo. It's a book that will make you question your assumptions and consider new ways of thinking about gender roles, family, and the values that shape our society.
It's a book that will get you thinking and talking, and challenge you to think about what really matters in life, But don't just take our word for it. Check out the Maiden, Mother, Matriarch yourself.
You can find it on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
We highly recommend diving in and exploring these ideas for yourself.
And we'll see you back here soon for the final part of our deep dive into the Maiden, Mother, Matriarch.
All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the Maiden, Mother, Matriarch. We've covered so much ground already, from the history of the good mother archetype to all the challenges mothers face today, and of course the importance of those traditional values. I'm really excited to see how Riker wraps everything up in these final chapters.
Well, get ready for a powerful message. He really brings it home in this last section, talking about reclaiming those traditional roles and values. Not because we're stuck in the past or anything, but because they really work for creating strong families and a better society.
And he starts with something that I think will resonate with a lot of our listeners. The idea that traditional roles can actually be really beneficial for women, psychologically and emotionally. You know, we live in a world where women are constantly told to push harder, do more, achieve more. But Riker offers a different perspective.
Yeah, he argues that embracing those traditional roles can actually lead to more happiness and fulfillment. He even cites studies that show women who choose to stay home with their children are often happier than those who work outside the home. Now, that doesn't mean every woman should stay home, or even wants to. It's just about challenging that assumption that a career is the only way to be fulfilled.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that there are different paths for women to find meaning and purpose in their lives.
Exactly. Riker emphasizes that it's about having a sense of purpose, feeling valued for what you contribute, whether you're working a job or taking care of your home and family. And he believes those traditional roles can provide that sense of meaning, allowing women to focus on building strong families and nurturing their communities.
It's about recognizing that a woman's worth isn't tied to her paycheck or her job title.
Right. It's about her character, her compassion, and how she contributes to the world.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into the Maiden, Mother, Matriarch, I want to touch on the core message of the book, the enduring power of the good mother archetype.
Riker believes this archetype is more relevant than ever, especially in today's world, which can feel pretty chaotic and uncertain at times.
He sees those qualities of the good mother, the love, the nurturing, the wisdom, the strength, as the antidote to all the individualism and division we see in society.
Yeah, he really believes that by tapping into that wisdom, we can create a better world, a more compassionate world, a more sustainable world, a world where families can thrive and communities are strong.
It's a really powerful message of hope and possibility. It reminds us that women have a huge influence on the future. Well, there you have it. Our deep dive into the Maiden, Mother, Matriarch is complete. We've explored so many fascinating ideas, and I hope this has given you a lot to think about.
If you want to learn more, we highly recommend checking out Conrad Riker's book. It's a real eye-opener. An essential reading for anyone who wants to understand the complexities of gender roles, family, and the power of traditional values.
You can find the Maiden, Mother, Matriarch on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books. So go check it out and explore these ideas for yourself.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep,